Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Jerry Byrne. Now, since the advent of COVID lockdown, all the rest of it, I've been speaking to some of the great and the good of music. I've got a lady now who's been certainly one of the great and the good for a very, very long time at this stage. Performing on TV, not alone right across Ireland, also in the USA, also in the UK as well. And coming from a very musical family, her sister is actually Gloria of One Day at a Time fame. I'm delighted to say hello to the one and only Patrice. Patrice, how are you?
Good man, Jerry. I'm fine. How are you?
Not bad at all. Not bad. Patrice, listen, you've been a long time in music.
Too long. Too long and very poor. Yeah, Jerry. I started at 11.
Wow.
Singing with my dad's band and playing drums and playing guitar, whatever needed to be done. Myself and Dory had we had a family band with Dad. So I'm now 67. So wow. Right up to last month, last year, this the February of last year, I was working. So there you go, Jerry. Every year.
Wow.
First Christmas ever for me not to work. Ever.
Yes, that is.
That I can remember.
Indeed, absolutely, and incredible. And you had a very successful band. It was Patrice and Tulsa.
Yeah, we'd great times. Yeah, I had nothing to really and truly great times. I did the Opry. I did the Opry before Gloria, which was major because she was the country music fanatic in our house. And I remember the time, like really, when I was about 13, I just thought the Beatles were great and the Kinks were great. And Gloria brought a record home, and it was Patsy Cline, and that was it. I just thought that was the loveliest music I'd ever heard, and she was the most wonderful singer I'd ever heard. And that was it. That's how I sort of slipped into country music. And then I'd hear Tammy with George Jones, all the greats after that. So the Beatles and the Kings sort of were put in the back foot. That was it,
Right.
Yeah. Gloria then, of course, went on to join the Morris Lynch band, and I stayed with Dad, and then formed my own band. So it was like just really and truly, it's been a lifetime for me.
Indeed, it
miss it a bit. I was just saying that here. I miss it a bit, but it was coming to time really that I was at the stage that I really, really wanted to do what I liked doing, and there was gigs I was going to, and they weren't necessarily for me. Loved doing the shows, loved working to people my own age, but you can't pick that every night, really,
Indeed, yes, indeed, that's the thing. But the thing was, I remember you doing numerous television appearances back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, indeed, yeah. Always afraid of our lives. God, what were we like younger? And sure, we were beautiful and we didn't know it, Television always frightened me a little bit. To talk frightened us all. We didn't know how to. We see, there was no schools in our day. The likes of all us girls singers, the Philomena Begley, Susan McCann, Gloria. There was no school to tell us what to do. It was literally just, and we had very little on television to show us. Gloria and I would have the radio at night, and this one record of Patsy Cline, and other than that, we just copied what we saw on television, how to stand and how to move. Nobody told us that, But, sometimes when I look back now, the girls in the 60s were great, like really and truly. That was their own thing. That's how they were doing it,
Indeed. So that's one of the things. Certainly, I think that's one of the amazing things as well. That I find in with the radio and all of that. Nobody ever told the likes of me how to do it. There was no school, and now you've got all these schools of radio and everything else. It's truly incredible.
You were lucky. Well, the thing about it is, obviously, you had a good radio voice, and always when you're out working with the public. You had to, not only, it wasn't just the voice, you needed a good voice, but you also needed a personality. Maybe that was more important than the voice sometimes.
Indeed so, yes.
Definitely on stage. To be able to project yourself on stage was important. And as I said, our father was wonderful. He had his own show band, but he was like, Dory and I were over in the Carousel before it was the Astoria in Manchester with Dad's band. We did a spot there for he was there for 5 nights running, and it was Gloria and her sister really at the time. We did our own wee spot when I was 10 and Gloria was 12.
Wow.
We did that. But, he would tell us what to do. But sure, did any young girl listen to the father telling them anything, never mind what to do on stage?
Yes.
We just put the idea, Dad would always say, I remember one of his things was always to dress, brightly, He said, you need to shine when you're on the stage, because the girls down the floor will have ordinary dresses on, so you need to shine. And I remember pinching Gloria and saying, I'm not wearing a shiny dress. I just wanted to be like the girls down on the floor with their nice little minis and, their little skirts and that. So we had all that. We had a great old time. So, and it just went from that, then it, just flew from me anyway.
Indeed. Now, you after that, you did some tours of the USA.
I did indeed. I did, but I recorded in Nashville, as most of the girls that worked with Tony Lockman did. That was the one thing that you were sure of, because he had the in with Porter Wagner. So, anyone that he brought over, Porter would put them on the Opry, because he had his own slot in the Opry every Saturday night. So you were, in fairness, you were, as long as you recorded with Porter Wagner, you got on the Opry. So that's how I got my slot, no more than the rest of them, and did a fair few tours there. But more recently went over, as I was saying, with 9/11, I was there at 9/11. So I was literally going to, up on maybe 20 years ago, go to the States and do maybe 5 months of the year there, just as things were starting to slow down here for me. I was going to go over there. I had an apartment and all got, and I was there, and I was to play that night in Yonkers, and the 9/11 happened. I was in the apartment when I went down. I heard all the sirens, saw it on the television, thought I was in the middle of some nightmare. And I couldn't get a flight out until, so that was the end of that. I never went back, and I never will go back. That was the end of that little trip, as I said. So I probably would have ended up, I was getting great work over there, Jerry, and it was easier for me, and I was into my 40s at that stage, early 50s, and the work was just fabulous. And the money was really good, so it was another little niche that I could have went into, but it just didn't happen. But anyway.
Indeed.
I came home and kept working.
Right, fair play. Well done on that. And when you were doing those tours that you'd spend maybe 5 months in the US, were you doing right across the country, or was it in particular areas?
No. I was only going, maybe I'd go for a month, and out of that month, then I'd get booked for somebody's wedding or somebody's anniversary party. So all that would be linked. So then I'd go, another month. So we were going maybe 3 months out of the year. Say if it was March, obviously Paddy's Day I'd be over there. So it was the month of March, and then it was the month of maybe June, and then the month of October. It was spaced out like that. So then we started looking at, because the Catskills had all come into it, we started looking at, going over there.
Okay.
And sure, my kids were big at that stage. They were going at that, and we had nothing to lose but to do it. Now, I would have always been a bit uneasy in the States. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, but I thought we'd do it. And then that happened, so that more or less told me, that's it. That's not for you. You're not doing that. And that's it. I came to Navan 1995, back home among the family here. And we had a couple of great years here between the race course here. I got whatever I needed to keep me going, and we're still doing it, as I said, still doing it up to last year. Still trying to look 40, and I was 67, so that'll tell you, Jerry, what it was like for me.
Sure.
I'd get Doria ringing me, maybe saying she was doing 5 numbers on a show, and I would still work 2.5 hours a night on my own,
Wow.
So I'm still doing as hard a work as that.
Fair play. That's that's good going. But it's a great sign. I mean, it's a great sign of a career, Patrice, in music when you when you can work for that long and still be in demand and still be getting work, particularly in an industry which is in so many cases fickle and so many people who have very short careers.
There, but yes, what I said earlier was this. I remember, of maybe I didn't. But a lot of the stuff, my dad and his brothers. Dad had 4 brothers that worked with him in the band, and from we were kids, we'd sit and watch them, and they thought, even though you didn't think you were taking all that in, we took in the show business thing. We knew what it was about really, and it was always. When I'd say to Dad something like, Gloria's a better singer than me, and he'd say, always back to me, hold on a minute, Louis Armstrong can't sing, but he can put a number across, and he says, you can do the same. So he would see exactly what you had, and he'd know exactly how you could do it. And I thought I wasn't taking it all in. I actually was, Yes. And was able to keep it going. So, sure, I reared my kids in it, and had my homes in it, and it's been wonderful. And I am gutted for them. I am gutted for the young ones that this has happened. I mean, had this happened when I was in my prime doing it, sure, God only knows, Jerry. How would I have managed? Both of us were in this industry. This is all we ever did.
Indeed.
And,
So,
oh my God, I would have been really. I can't imagine,
Indeed.
I can't imagine what our life would have been like.
Indeed. So, it is. I mean, I've spoken to, numerous of the younger artists. Some of who are sort of getting their, so-called getting their first rungs of the ladder, and they were going, very well, and things were shaping up and looking good for them. And then suddenly, bosh, they hit the brick wall when everything closed down.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And that really has been tough going. Definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, there's nothing like it. There's nobody will tell you, Jerry, and you've done your comparing and you've been on stage. There is nothing like that upper that you get when you walk out there and people are with you.
Yes.
And I don't know another profession that you would get something like that. So you can't blame these young ones for buying into that. Sometimes I like to say, definitely with the girls, I would say to them, do it and enjoy it. But, for God's sake, have something else. You always have a little thing, because it gets, when you get into your 40s and you get into your, early 50s and you're still trying to compete, even though I wasn't in that bracket, never wasn't. I did the Nashville, I did all that in my late 20s, early 30s. And the minute I was out of that, it was making a living, and a good living.
Yes.
But it was a different niche I was in. I wasn't. I had nothing to fight for there. I was able to hold my own and go in and do the golf clubs and do the dinner dances and and have my band and enjoy my work. I feel sorry for them, striving to bums on seats to get people in the door.
Indeed. So,
that's hard.
That is tough going. But you were lucky in many ways, and fortunate the same with Gloria, in that you were around at a time when entertainment was absolutely whacking it. I mean, there were so many venues, and it was a huge back in the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s. It was absolutely huge.
Absolutely. Always talk about the. Well, I mean, I have most of those diaries set from 78. From 78, I would have my diaries. And, if you were to read them, you'd be dizzy, as to what we did. And I was on the road, as you know, my husband played drums in the band and drove. And band leader and drums and myself, so the two of us. So we left our 2 kids and headed off. Christmas Day, we played Belmullet, the Palm Court in Belmullet, for 5 years. And, Christmas Day, the people will be listening now that will have been at that dance. So I'd get to Belmullet, I'd leave my house at 3 o'clock in the day. We get to Belmullet, get the gear up, the cup of tea. Not one sinner would be in that vicinity, would be in the hall. The doors would open at 12 o'clock. And I'm telling you now, Jerry, 2,000 people would be in there every Christmas night. So that, you know, they were all home from England, the very best, dressed to the very best. The best dance we played, like I'd say in the year, would have been Christmas night. But I was leaving my two kids at 3 o'clock in the day. That was it. That was the life I was in. That's what I had to do. Hard going. And, you know, you played 5 nights a week, Jerry.
Yes.
And if you didn't do, there was one particular hall, and if you didn't do over 600 people on a Thursday night, you sort of didn't get back.
Truly
So
astounding.
can you imagine that? 600 people.
Yes, absolutely astounding. Absolutely.
Think about it, like,
Yes.
because I know that the likes of the younger ones now, like 250 people is a good crowd.
Yes.
That would have been just a really poor crowd in our day.
Indeed. I remember the days well. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
It was absolutely phenomenal. It really was, and it's you know, and it's not the thing about it is with the music in Ireland, the sort of the Irish and country scene is probably holding up better than many of the other genres of music, because there were so many venues which had rock bands and all of that, and I mean the vast majority. Vast majority are gone.
But we only had really. If you can remember, there was the country bands, and then there was maybe about 5, as we'd call them, pop bands.
Yes.
And then you'd have country rock, and then you had the fabulous, like the likes of the Memories and the Plattermen, and like they were totally different to what we were doing, but we were all playing the same venues.
Yes, that's true.
The country night would have been the Sunday night, and then the rock night would have been the Saturday night. So maybe, you know, say the Memories were there or Dickie Rock or Joe Dolan on the Saturday night, and then we were in on the Sunday night.
Yes.
And then they would have had a Friday night. They would have had like a lesser band maybe, and on a Friday, so they'd run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
That's
a lot of those venues.
Indeed they did. Yes. And then sometimes back in the day, you remember, there used to be sort of other events used to happen. Say on a Thursday night, you'd have some sort of another type of thing.
Yeah.
Could be talent.
Or when cabaret started, I remember that we were all like, "Oh, how do you do this?" kind of thing. So it was, what's this about? So it was a whole different program you had to do. You had to be, you know, you had to do something like that. You had to be able to. You just had to fit the bill, Jerry. You know, and if you didn't cut it. No more than when I went in to do the radio show. So that was it. I was just landed there one morning and talked for 2 hours and played music. So, you know, really and truly, as I said to you, there was no school for that either. There was no school to show us that. Dory and I were lucky. We had a dad in the profession, and he was in a professional band. And, you know, was in a big band, didn't understand country music. Jerry was raging. Was disgusted with Glory and I that, you know, we would love this kind of music, but, you know, that was it. Sure, he wasn't long about changing his tune now.
Yes, I can well believe it. I can well believe it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yes, I remember the days we worked together back in those heady days of back in the around the mid 1980s.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. It really is. And,
God, Jerry, 1980, my God.
it was about 80. I think it was about 85, around the mid 80s. I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, I'd be going in with a head on me, I'll tell you. We might have done... And I laugh now, when because, I mean, everything is so drink-orientated now. You know, there were no bars. It was a ballroom in the middle of nowhere. And we were after, so it was the 80s, like it was after the 60s era, you know, and there were still hundreds of people coming to the halls at 12 o'clock at night, and there was no drink ever, really.
Yes.
It was only later when really we went into hotels, and they'd have a disco, they'd have the band on before the disco. Remember that?
Yes.
Maybe Club, what was the other place in the Glenavon in Cookstown, wasn't it?
Yes.
So they'd be the hotels that have a disco on after the band, that put the live band on first.
Yes.
And then there was bars, and then, you know, it was a whole different scene, really. But, no, I could, you know, loads as regards ballrooms and girls and for God's sake, you know,
It was
where you got changed, where you didn't get changed, the cup of tea, the sitting for hours, the poor girls had to do anyway. I used always just thought, Susan McCann, a good friend of mine, to this day, a great friend of mine, but she could arrive in her Mercedes and she could drive herself to the gig and she could literally maybe get dressed, you know, in her house, and an hour, 2 hours later, I was still leaving at 4 o'clock in the day with the lads because my husband drove the van. And, you know, it was all those hours away from home that I would have just loved to have had at home, and then go on and do your work. But I'd have put in me good 4 hours before I even got up to sing, you know?
Yes.
But, you know, it could have been made a lot easier for a lot of us, but that was just what it was.
Well, that was, yeah.
It didn't kill me anyway, Jerry.
That's it. Well, that's it. It was what it was, sort of what it was. And I mean, one thing that you know, I remember from back in all the various venues, you know, the dressing rooms weren't exactly what you would call plush.
Desperate.
Truly.
Just desperate.
I mean,
and I'd be a bit OCD even here in the house. You know, I'd be a bit of a stickler for stuff, you know, and oh my God, I remember one time in particular, literally lining, I had to go into a loo, like there was one loo, and it wasn't even a marquee, it was a rotten hall, and I lined the floor with toilet paper, because obviously to change your shoes, change everything, you know, and that's how I got changed, and that's, you know, and then you had to take that stuff off because you had to wear it the next night. You had no time, no tumble dryer, nothing to dry your stuff, you know. I was just, and then you travelled, as I said, all the time with the lads. But I'll have to say this, you know, there wasn't one in all those years. I could count on one hand the guys, because I had the same guys for over 20 years. As I said, I still talk to them. I would have, they were my family. They were, you know, they were that. We'd get an odd new fella in, and we'd all be delighted because a bit of crack, a bit of new crack, and he'd have something new to add to the whole thing, you know. But there were one that I just have to mention, Jerry. You remember Jerry Muldoon, do you, from Castleblaney?
Yes, I do indeed. Yes.
Do you remember wee Jerry?
Yes.
Jerry Muldoon.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he was maybe of all people I worked with, he was the one that had me back most, and you need that. My husband was the drummer, so I mean, all I'd get maybe thrown at me would be a drumstick if I made a mistake or if I did anything wrong. Mind you, I was well fit to throw it back, but Muldoon always, if there was something that wasn't going right for me on stage, you know, I totally depended on him for everything. He never once gave me a wrong intro, never once gave me a wrong key. If I was stuck for anything, he'd talk, you know, I could hear him. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, incredible.
He was totally with me. He was totally with me on stage, Jerry Muldoon, and wonderful to this day. Still to have you know, I can still ring him and have the best of crack as if some of the gigs he's talking about it was just yesterday, you know. And we have loads to talk about. We have loads of memories.
Absolutely magic. It really is, and you know, it's a fantastic era. And the one thing about it is, like, you know, well done to you on continuing on. I mean, you doing your sort of one woman shows for so many years after that.
Yeah. Oh, for years. Yeah, on my own. Came back, as I said, from the States that time, and sure, it was all tracks. And somebody had said that the money just wasn't there, Jerry, to pay a band. You see, and in fairness to the boys, they could have went off like and done a one-man show or done a two. That's what was happening for us. I was into my early 50s at that stage, and I thought, I'll try this, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, sure, I've nothing to lose, you know. So we went out the first time. We made the tracks over in the States, and with a friend of mine that used to work with me in a band as well, that lives over there now, and he had a studio, and he brought me in, and he went and explained all this to me, and that was back in what was the year 2000, actually. That was the year. No, yeah, the year 2000. And I said, nobody will accept that in Ireland, Jimmy. I remember saying to him, nobody will accept tracks. And he said, well, it's happening here, you know. And he said, what have you to lose? And I remember going in, as I said, the first night. I said to the guy in Cavan, listen, he said, where's the band? And I said, well, I'm sure they're playing somewhere, but they're not with me tonight. But I'm going to try this. You don't have to pay me now. I said, you know, I'm just going to try this out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that was it. And I've worked, thanks be to God, well, sort of Butch was the drummer, so he went from that to work on the whole sound for me, and lights, and the show that I had then. And that's literally, I would maybe, if I was working with Gloria, I'd get a couple of lads in with the backing tracks, just for the look of it, whatever. But all of a sudden, then you had what you had in the studio nearly. It was powerful. It was great.
Indeed, they. And well, the other thing, Patrice, that has that has changed so much as well is the technology. Because backing tracks from 20 years previous really wouldn't cut the mustard. But I mean,
well, my darling, right up to last March, I was using the very same machines. And I remember Butch saying to me, when these are extinct now, when this goes, we're going to have to, I literally had the same equipment for 20 years, Jerry.
Wow.
And when I would change, or say, for instance, if I was doing a gig with somebody else, if there was a little band set up in the north, and many a time that happened, and I worked with them, I wanted my own sound back because I didn't get what I got, I just did not get what I got with my own sound.
Yes.
We were using I think he has about 4 of those mini discs, Jerry. We were still using them, and literally that's what worked for me,
Right, just shows you. It just shows
and
you.
And then, loads of friends that are working in the business that I had, great lads, Eamon Toll. Do you remember Eamon Toll?
I do indeed,
Do you remember Eamon Toll from?
Yes.
Eamon, he'd say to me, listen, and, all work from this stick here, and I said, well, now, that won't do me. I still have to have me set up with my speakers, and, I still have to have it looking right, as if it was, I just couldn't do that. Wouldn't happen. But anyway, we were getting, I think there was about two of the machines, and Butch was saying to me, when that goes, we'd have to now get a whole new rig, and I was going, I don't think so. I think that I'll be gone before the rig's gone,
Amazing stuff. Really
anyway,
is.
Jerry, that's what it is, my love. I'm not sure that anyone's in. If there's anyone out there that's listened to this, that maybe down through the years had come to hear me, thank you. And I hope you're well, and I really do, because I think we're all lucky to get to this age and to be still well and strong and able to remember the good old days and hate this awful time. But like everything else, we'll get through it, Jerry.
Indeed we will. Everything, every pandemic that has ever happened in mankind has came, but it's also went again. And I think we're better armed. Of course
it did.
Yeah, we're better armed.
Of course it did.
Now than I think we've ever been in history. So the vaccine is coming, and we shall get there. 2021 will be a better year.
Oh, please God, Jerry, for especially in all. Well, definitely, Jerry, and what I'd be saying my prayers tonight for anyone that's listening to this and anyone that can remember anything about the years, the dances, me out there singing. If you can remember it all, pets, these prayers will be said for you. So God bless, Jerry, and great talking to you.
Indeed, same as that, Patrice. It's been fascinating. It really has. Great to catch up with you, and lovely to talk about all the years in music. And listen, as soon as it's safe to do so, I'm looking forward to seeing you on stage somewhere along the way.
Oh, please God, love, please God. And listen, I tell you, Jerry, you mind yourself.
I shall do my best. And
stay in touch.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Patrice. Appreciate it. Lovely to talk to you.
God bless.